Namaste and welcome back to the JavaScript series. Today, my dear friends, we are going to be discussing a brand new concept in JavaScript called as strings. See, arrays and strings are two such concepts which is asked in 99% of all JavaScript interviews, all coding interviews. In fact, 9 out of 10 questions which is asked in any coding interview is on arrays and strings. It's that important. We will be exploring strings in complete depth as we have done with the previous topics. Anyways, how do you define a string? That is the first thing we need to start with, how to define a string. Now try to understand. Let us assume I take a character, say J. Now this is a character. Now if I say JavaScript, now this is a series of characters or a sequence of characters. Similarly, if I say just T, that is a character. If I say Tap Academy, now this is a series or sequence of characters, right? So in JavaScript, irrespective of whether it is a single character or a sequence of characters, characters are categorized as strings. Characters are categorized as strings. So the easiest definition that you can give to anybody who asks you what is a string is that a string is a sequence of characters. A string is a sequence of characters. Am I clear till here? Wonderful. Now let's try to see how we can create strings in JavaScript, and there are three ways in which you can create strings. Try to understand. Let me just bring the editor here for our reference. So the first way in which you can create a string is using double quotes like this. Within double quotes, you can put a single character or you can put a series of characters. Both are treated as string itself. Now let us assume I will tell JavaScript like this. I hope you're able to understand. Now I need to give this a reference or a variable, right? I need to store it inside a variable. I will call this as, say, yes1. Yes1 will be of type let, like this, because that is how you create variables in JavaScript. Am I clear? This is one way to create JavaScript, which is the first way using double quotes. So I'm just keeping it for your reference. The second way in which you can be creating a string is using single quotes. Yes, you heard me right, using single quotes. Inside single quotes, for example, I can tell my name Rohit like this, right? And please try to understand, I can give this a reference, I can call it as yes2. Yes2 is going to be of type let like this. I hope you're able to understand. So using double quotes is one way to create a string, using single quotes is one way to create a string, and the second way is using single quotes. Now there is a third way also. The third way is, and let me just call this a variable as probably name like this. You can call it whatever you want, I'm calling it as name. Now the third way is using something called as backticks. And if you have not seen backticks, usually on your keyboard, it will be above the tab button on your keyboard. You will see you will have tilde, and below that you will have a single tick. I'm showing it for your reference. You will have the tilde button, and under that you will have that backtick. Okay. So see, I'm just putting backticks like this. You see that? Let me just zoom it a little for your reference. This is only backtick. Great. Now in this, I'll just go here. And here, the entire advantage of this backticks is, using backticks, you can create something called as a string literal template. You can create something called as a string literal template. Understood? Now, what is that? Very simple. Here, I can say something like hi, comma, and let us assume, now here, I want whatever is the value inside this variable name to come and sit. Now this is only possible if you use backticks, because now you can use something called as $. And after this, you can place whichever variable you want. And what is the variable you want to place? Name. Understood? Next, I will be coming here and I will be giving this a reference. I will call it as probably yes2 like this. Or let me just simplify it. I'll call it as greeting. Understood? Now you really want to see whether this will print it. So I'll just say console.log, and I will just go ahead and I will be printing greeting like this. And if I do this and execute it, it is showing me an error, and the error it is saying is that console spelling is wrong. Absolutely, console spelling is wrong. We will fix it, we will clear it, we will re-execute it, in which case I'm not getting it. Why am I not getting it if you ask me? That is because after dollar, you should give the name of the variable, but that variable should be enclosed within flower brackets like this. Should be enclosed within flower brackets. Of course, it's showing some strike off. You can ignore that. That is the editor thing, but you can see now the color itself changed. So the syntax is not just dollar, it's dollar followed by these flower brackets inside which you can be putting any name that you want. Yes, or any variable name that you want. Now I'll just go here, and if in case I were to clear the screen and execute it, now you can see hi Rohit came. So did you understand the three ways? So very simple, most commonly used is double quotes. We'll also be using single quotes, and when we want to create something called as a string template, we will be using backticks. So these are the three ways. Now if you really want to understand and grasp strings, you should understand it from the memory point of view. Otherwise, you will be totally and utterly confused now and in all future programs. So how does strings work from the memory? Let's explore. Alright my friends, now I've created a single string called as JavaScript. Now everybody knows from the memory point of view, we have our stack, we have our heap. Within the heap, there is a dedicated region for strings called as string pool. When a JavaScript program begins execution, on the stack, the global execution context is created. Now inside that, when I see assignment, right hand side executes. When I see double quotes, JavaScript knows that we are creating a string. Now, where does strings created in the memory? Inside the string pool. But because of the concept called as string interning, it will first go and check whether already any copy of JavaScript executes within the string pool. Clearly, it does not see anything, and hence a brand new string gets created inside like this, which will have address, which will have indexes, which will have the characters, right? Now this address is taken and given to the left hand side. References are created on the stack. That 1000 comes and sits inside that. This is referring to that. Clear? Beautiful. Now try to understand. In the next line now, I'm going to do something interesting. Now what I will do is, I'll just go and say, let s2 equal to, and within double quotes, probably I'll try to create one string Java like this. Now what happens? Now try to understand. Assignment right hand side, double quote string. Immediately it will go to the string pool, and it will start the process of string interning by first checking, is there a copy of a string called as Java already present in the string pool. Clearly you can see there is nothing called as Java on the string pool. Hence it knows, oh, I should create a unique copy, and hence a brand new string gets created which will have its own address, indexes, characters. So the point you must understand is, on the string pool, you will never find duplicates. You will always find only unique strings. Am I clear till here? Great. Now what happens is, please try to understand, this 2000 came and sat inside s2. s2 is referring to this. So we have two strings. Am I clear? Great. Now if in case I were to go and I would say, console.log, and if I would say, please compare the value of s1 with s2. Both strict equality and non-strict equality will work the same in this case. I'll get false because one value is JavaScript, one value is Java. Great? Awesome. Now what I will do is, I'll come here, and what if I say, let s3 equal to, and within double quotes, I will again say Java itself. Now I want you guys to pause the video for a second and think independently for yourselves and tell me, do you really think that one more copy of Java will get created in the string pool? Yes or no? Assuming that you gave it some thought, let me tell you what would actually happen. Assignment RHS, double quotes, it knows you need to create a string. Now it goes in the string pool and it will check whether there is already a string called as Java. Now many beginners will make a fundamental mistake of assuming, see Rohit, already there is Java, so it will not create another copy. That's where you did not understand a fundamental concept of computer science called as case sensitivity. My friends, look at this Java and look at this Java. What is the difference? These are all uppercase, these are all lowercase. For JavaScript, which is a case-sensitive programming language, there is a huge difference between uppercase and lowercase. Hence, this is not the same string. These are two different strings. And because of the concept of case sensitivity, a brand new string gets created which will have its own address, it will have its indexes, it will have its characters. And these two Javas are not the same. Now the address 3000 is taken and given to the reference yes3, yes3 gets 3000, this is referring to this. Great. And now if you want proof, what I would like to do here is, I will now try to compare yes2 with yes3, yes2 with yes3. And now if in case I go execute it, clearly you can see false. It's not the same. Understood what I'm trying to say? Amazing. So I hope everybody understood what is the situation in which a string is created in the string pool. Only if it is unique. And even case sensitivity matters. So even if one character's case is not matching, it will create a brand new string. Is this much clear to everybody? Great. Now let me show you one more scenario which will bring even more clarity. Alright my friend, let's get started. Now watch it. I'll just go and I'll create one very simple string. I'll say let yes1 equal to, and within double quotes I will say JavaScript like this. Great. Alright. Now yes, we have created a string, but what does it look like from the memory point of view? Let's try to understand. Now those of you who have been regular to these classes, you know that in JavaScript we have something called as memory segments, right? And there are two primary memory segments which I've introduced you to. One is called as the stack, or rather commonly referred to as the call stack, and another is the heap. Whenever a JavaScript program begins execution on the stack, one region is created called as the global execution context, which we commonly refer here as GEC, global execution context. Of course, this has two phases, creation phase, execution phase, which I have done a deep dive into in the previous classes. You can please go have a look at it because this is a complete JavaScript course series. So try to understand. Inside this, please watch it. I'm not showing that creation, execution phase and all of that. Whenever you see assignment, first the right hand side executes and only then the left hand side. Now in the right hand side, the moment you put double quotes, JavaScript knows that you're trying to create a string. And strings, my dear friends, are created on the heap segment. Strings are created on the heap segment. But the point to note here is that strings are created in the heap, but in the heap there is a dedicated region created to just create and store strings. Yes, you heard me right. There is a dedicated region to store strings. And that dedicated region is what I am showing like this, which is called as string pool. And please understand, this is a concept which exists in multiple other programming languages, and it exists in JavaScript as well. There is something called as a string pool. Now, please try to understand, the first thing that JavaScript does is, it goes inside the string pool and it checks, is a string called as JavaScript already present inside the string pool, yes or no? Clearly, eyes can see that there is no string called as JavaScript. If there is no string called as JavaScript, immediately it will go and create a brand new string like this, which will also have an address. I'm assuming the address to be 1000. Strings look similar to arrays. It is a sequence of characters, and how many characters are there? So many cells will get created. JavaScript has 10 characters, so 0th index till 9th index, 10 characters. Then inside that, each cell 111 character gets stored. This is how a string looks like. Wonderful. Now, the address of the string is taken, and that is what is given to this variable yes1, which now acts as a reference to the string. And everyone knows that these references are created on the stack inside the global execution context like this. So 1000 comes and sits inside yes1, and hence this is referring to this. I hope everybody understood what I'm trying to say. Great. Now next what happens, Rohit, you may ask. Next what happens is, please try to understand. Now I want to just print this out. If in case you're interested, I'll just console.log yes1. And my log spelling is wrong. Let me just fix that for you. Console.log, right? Beautiful. Now if I were to execute it, JavaScript kill. Great. There's nothing here that you didn't know that I showed you, so I'll just remove this line. Now things gets interesting. Now watch it. Now what I will do is, in the next line I will go and say, let yes2 equal to, and I will again try to create a string called as JavaScript. Now you need to focus and listen to what I'm saying. Control comes to the next line, assignment, right hand side. In the right hand side, you see double quotes, JavaScript engine knows that you're trying to create a string. Strings are always and always created on the heap, inside the string pool. Now listen to my words carefully. In JavaScript, JavaScript uses a concept called as string interning. What is the name of the concept? String interning. Now it may sound like a very fancy concept, but listen to what it means. String interning is a concept through which JavaScript ensures that for a particular value of a string, only one unique copy exists in the memory. I repeat, for a particular value of a string, only one unique copy exists in the memory. So try to understand, you are trying to create a string called as JavaScript. Now what it does is, it will not directly create it. Instead, it first goes inside the string pool and checks whether a string called as JavaScript already exists. And yes, it already exists. If it exists, JavaScript will not create one more duplicate copy. This it will not do. Instead, it will try to optimize its memory. Rather than having two copies, duplicates, it will use the same copy by now taking the address of the existing string and giving that address to the reference yes2. Which means now yes2 gets created inside our stack and the same address 1000 comes and sits. Which means one object will now have two references pointing to it. And all this in great depth I've explained previously, that object can be one, references can be many, pass by value, pass by reference. I've explained all of this. Yes? So I hope you're able to understand. Now only one copy JavaScript exists but two references. Now why did JavaScript do this? This process of ensuring only a single copy of a unique value of a string exists in memory is what you call a string interning. And this is done for two reasons. One is to clearly optimize for memory. Why to have two copies of JavaScript? Second is to make comparison of strings faster. What do you mean by comparison of strings? Now let us assume I want to quickly go to my program and check if the value inside yes1 and yes2 are the same. How will I do that? Very simple. Maybe I'll just take console.log. And inside this, how do you check if the values of two variables are same? You can use the equality operator, yes1 double equal to yes2, right? Now because both yes1 and yes2 are referring to the same string JavaScript, comparison becomes easy. There is no need to even compare because both are the same. So comparison becomes faster, quicker. You may not notice it, but if you're writing large-scale applications, these memory optimizations matter. They improve the speed of execution of your program. Any which ways, try to understand. If I were to go here and if I were to execute, it will say true, yes, both are equal. And if you want, you can also do strict equality. What is the difference between normal equality and strict equality? Strict equality ensures that both are of the same type. And yes, both are of type strings only. So in this case also, you can notice if I were to go here and execute, it will say true itself because yes1 is also string, yes2 is also string. So value is also same, type is also same. Understood clear? And if any of these concepts are confusing you, I recommend you to go back and watch all the lectures in this series because this is the internet's greatest and most detailed series on JavaScript. Make sure to make use of it, right? Any which ways. Now if this much is clear to everybody, let's move on, okay? Now, unfortunately, there is no way in JavaScript for me to directly prove to you that yes1 and yes2 address that they hold is the same. I wish there was a way for me to show you. There is no way. But you must take my word for it. If you don't believe in me, you can go and do your independent research, and I hope you will also arrive at the same conclusion that because of interning or string interning, we have only a single copy and both are referring to the same. But I can't prove it to you programmatically. There is no way for me to compare references. Okay? Great. If this much is clear to all of you, now let me show you something very, very interesting. I'll remove this line for the time being. Now, watch this. Let me show you, there is one more way also in which you can create a string. Now I will say, let yes3 equal to, and now I will say new string, like this. What is this new string, all this? When I teach you object orientation, classes and objects in detail, you will understand. But for now, remember, this is one more way to do it. Now within double quotes, I can go double quotes or single quotes, that is your wish. Inside double quotes, I'll go and I'll create a string. I'll call it as JavaScript, like this. Great. Now you must try to understand what happens. See, now what happens is assignment RHS. When you say new string, JavaScript knows you need to create a string. Which string are you trying to create? JavaScript. Now try to understand what will happen here is, the moment you tell new string, on the heap segment, outside the string pool, one brand new object gets created. One brand new object gets created. And every object, when it gets created, will have its own address. I'm assuming the unique address to be 3000. Now next what happens, Rohit, if you ask me, try to understand. Now what happens is, many people will assume that now inside this object one string will get created called as JavaScript. No. Again, JavaScript utilizes the same concept of string interning. Strings in JavaScript are created in only one place, which is the string pool, and nowhere else. So now what happens is, it checks whether, what is the string you want to create? JavaScript. It goes inside the string pool. It checks whether JavaScript is present. Is JavaScript present? Yes. And because it is present, it will not create another duplicate. Instead, it takes the existing string's address and passes the address to this object. And internally inside the object, it will hold this address 1000, and hence this is referring to this. Understood? So indirectly again it is referring to the same string. Now it takes this address 3000 and it gives it to the variable s3, which is a reference created on the stack. s3 holds 3000, that is referring to this. But this is referring to this, which means s3 is indirectly referring to this. Which means all three times I am basically referring to just a single unique copy of a string called as JavaScript. Am I clear till here? Wonderful. Now let me show you something really interesting. Why is this string interning done? I told you for two reasons. One is to optimize memory optimization. Second is to make comparison faster. I've told you these two things, right? So watch it. Now if in case I just say console.log, and if I were to say s1 double equal to s3, now I'm comparing it with s3. Tell me normal equality or strict equality? Normal equality. Now watch it. If I go here, quickly it will compare, because after all s1 is also the same string only, s3 is also the same string only, there is absolutely nothing to compare, it will say true. Understood? But the interesting thing now is, if I make it as strict equality. Now if I make it a strict equality and execute, I unfortunately got false. What is the reason? Many people, including advanced to intermediate level programmers also, cannot be answering this question because they never studied JavaScript in depth like this. Now let me explain to you. The concept of strict equality is, not only should the values be equal, the type of the values also should be equal. Now some of you will be like, obviously Rohit, s1 is also string, s3 is also string, but that may be your assumption. Now let's see whether it is right. What I will do is, I'll just go here and say console.log, and there is something called as type of operator in JavaScript. I'll say type of s1. It will tell me what is the type of s1. Next what I will do is, I'll also check what is the type of s2. Now if in case I go and execute here, look at the output carefully. Type of s2. I also want to show you what is the type of s3. Now if I go here, let me clear the screen, let me re-execute. Now watch this carefully. Type of s1 is string. Type of s2 is also string. But what is the type of s3? Type of s3 is an object which internally is referring to a string. But this is not a string, this is an object, this is a string. If s3 was directly referring to this guy, it would have been, type would have been string, but it is referring to this is referring to this is an object. And that is why when we use strict equality, though value may be same, type is not same. s1 is of type string, s3 is of type object, and the moment type mismatches, you will get false. I hope you are able to understand what I am trying to tell you. Is this much clear to everybody? Did everybody understand what I'm trying to say? Amazing, great. So I hope this much clarity you have got. If this is clear, the fundamental base with respect to strings is become clear to you. But I would like to give you another example which will give you a much more fundamental understanding. Let's proceed. Just now, I discussed this example with you. And I told you that, hey, listen, all these three strings, right, are actually nothing but the same string object. There's one string. All three are referring to it. Two are referring directly, one is referring indirectly. Now, the question that will come in somebody's mind is, see, Rohit, I thought I'm creating three strings here. Now, this is different, this is different, this is different. Now, what if I try to modify the first string? Now, if I change something in the first string, don't you think unknowingly I'm changing the other two strings also, which will affect my program? This will never happen, because this word itself or the sentence that I will change the string does not apply to JavaScript. Because in JavaScript, strings, my dear friends, are immutable. Immutable is a fancy word for saying that you cannot mutate it. Mutation is a fancy word for change, which means indirectly you're saying that I cannot change the string in JavaScript. Once a string is created, it cannot be changed. Not a single character can be modified. If you want proof, see, this looks like an array only, right? It has indexes, which means you can access characters using the index. For example, let us assume I want to access this character V. Which index is it in? Second index. Now watch it. I'll just go here and I'll say console.log, and here I will say yes1 of what is the index? 2. Clear? Now I'll go here and execute. Yes, I got V. So you're able to access it like an array using indexes and using this index of operator. Now, if you think like an array, I'll be able to modify by saying, hey, listen, yes1 of 2, that is the second index, please replace the character with, say, lowercase v with uppercase v, like this. And now if you think this lowercase v will now mutate or change and become uppercase v, you are absolutely mistaken. This will not happen. If you want proof, watch it. I'll just go here and I will print yes1 of 2 again. Even now both are v only. So this is proof to you that, hey, listen, you can access the characters individually. You can access them. But what you cannot for sure do is modify them or change them. Because the nature of strings in JavaScript is that they are immutable. And this was done on purpose because JavaScript follows a concept called as string interning. And they know that a unique value of a string will be there only once in the memory. And if a programmer tries to create multiple copies of the same, it will all be referring to the same. So if one tries to change it, the others will also get affected, and hence they made it immutable. This was a conscious choice, keeping in mind memory optimization and speed of comparison, right? Any which ways. So what you need to understand is strings are immutable. You cannot change it. You cannot change it. Even if you try, you will not get an error. Please understand, JavaScript will not throw any error. You will not get any error. See in the terminal, did you get any error when I execute it? But silently it will fail. Silently it will fail and it will not make any changes. So if in case you were thinking, this is the answer, strings in JavaScript are immutable. I hope, my dear friends, that the fundamental base required to understand strings has become clear through this class. As usual, if you love this series, please make sure to like, subscribe and comment to the channel. It really helps us a lot. And stay tuned for all the upcoming videos in this series. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.